Hello, everyone. My name is Felipe. I'm here with the Charter for Compassion. Happy Golden Rule Day, April 5th. We're so excited to be able to celebrate and bring to remembrance and more awareness the principle of the Golden Rule: treat others as you want to be treated, and how deep we can go with this, right? So I'm excited to be presenting to you Shane O'Connor, our Golden Ruleism. What do you put there? Bannister?
Just to confuse you a little bit.
Okay, I was like, what is that? Oh, Golden Ruleism sort of like person for the Charter for Compassion and also in charge of other educational programs, Shane. And before we begin, let me share my screen and share a couple of events that are happening with the Charter upcoming. So we have first the Global Read webinar series of 2023. Today, we're going to be discussing the Golden Ruleism booklet here with Shane. And what this all entail, the formulation that is used, and how can we apply it to our lives. So we have here our friend here, Shane. So just a couple of things to let you know, the Charter for Compassion sector meet and greet, there is an environment team meeting. They would like to share that, and they would like to share their vision, discussion, how together we can promote the health and well-being of our environment. This is happening on Wednesday, April 12th at 8 a.m. Pacific, which means 4 p.m. UTC or UK time. So you can register by going to our website, charterforcompassion.org, and click on the calendar on our homepage. Next, we have our CEI course that begins next Monday, April 10, is Poetry for Inspiration and Well-Being with John Smeltzer. The course lasts 5 weeks and the tuition is $40. This is a course that comes back every year by popular demand. So take advantage of this and get your creative writing juices going. Again, you can register with on our website, charterforcompassion.org. We have our EdNet forum next week on 2 weeks from now, on Thursday, April 20th at 7:30 a.m. Pacific, Narrative 4, the Power of Storytelling. And Shane, you can probably tell us a little bit about them too. But they are a very powerful organization working on education. And last but not least, we have our Compassionate USA project that is being sort of like led by Compassion in San Antonio. Learn about Compassionate USA directly from the San Antonio Mayor, Nuremberg. This is for anyone who's part of a compassionate city, an organization, or has signed the charter from the US. It's a great moment to check in with what's happening at the Charter, share your activities and ask questions, and learn more about Compassionate USA, which is a pretty awesome initiative that might be able to bring even more compassionate cities to the map. This will happen on Wednesday, April 26th from 2 to 3 p.m. Pacific time. And you can also register on our website, charterforcompassion.org. And finally, our Sangha that happens the last Saturday of every month. You can check it on our schedule. A great time to meditate and to think and reflect on what's been going on. So that's what we have right there. Shane, the floor is yours. Welcome, welcome.
Great, and thank you very much. I hope you can hear me, Felipe, and I hope everybody else, wherever you might be in the world, that are tuning in and hopefully participating for the next 55 minutes or so. I hope you're well, and a happy Golden Rule Day. I'm not sure if Golden Rule Day has been a big part of your calendar in the past, or this is the first one, but it certainly will be a part of my calendar from this point on. So I'm enjoying what's been shared on a very global scale so far, and I hope you are too. So I'm coming from Ireland. I'm actually based right now in Ireland, but flying back to where myself and my family live in Spain in just a few hours' time. So I'm looking over some very beautiful scenery here in a part of Ireland, which is almost in the middle, not north, not south, but somewhere in the middle. It's County Monaghan. And the sun is shining and I'm feeling good, but I'm also feeling very excited to share what I've been connected to for the last 6 or 7 months in a fairly in-depth way. And so what we would love to do for the next while is I'm going to share bits and pieces of this booklet, this Golden Ruleism booklet, that is a guidebook really for how we can bring the Golden Rule into action in our thoughts, in our inactions as much as our actions. But it's a guidebook on a daily basis for adults, for learners, for uncles and aunties, parents, grandparents, to just check in with our values, with our ethics, and with our morals. So I'll read some extracts out from Golden Ruleism, and then hopefully we'll get some interaction, some questions, maybe some confusion, maybe some comments that you want to bring to life as well. So that's really how the format is going to work, and we would love as much participation as possible. There may be some young people entering the room at some point, but we'll take it as it comes. And so the GoldenRuleism booklet, it is actually a booklet that you can go on the Charter for Compassion website. You can download it. It's a gift. And it wasn't written by me. It was written by someone who's become a friend of mine over the past wee while working for the Charter for Compassion and linking to GoldenRuleism and learning about it as well on a daily basis. And Craig Klein was the author, or GoldenRuleism man, as he may be known as well. So the booklet opens up, and we will be able to share on screen at different times some of the components of GoldenRuleism. But of course, it's stemming from Golden Rule. It's building upon Golden Rule and maybe taking it a few different directions into the action side of Golden Rule. And it's titled A Living Golden Rule Guide or Guidebook for Life. And that's the opening page of it. But I think there's a few comments just before getting into the content of it that are quite important. And I've mentioned one of them already, but it's a booklet for all beings, for all earthlings, as it says in the book. It's for children, directed towards children, but it's not a children's book. And I think that's quite important to say and stipulate at the outset, because this book is written for adults with the cognitive understanding that we're addressing adults. It's taken on board by adults and hopefully shared with children and for children, but it's not written as a book for children. What we are doing within GoldenRuleism, the project, and Felipe, you pronounced it not too bad, the title that I've just put up here, but when it says above my name here, Shane O'Connor, obviously from Ireland, and in Gaelic, Banistor is more of a guide, like a team leader or a guide. And recently I've taken that role on, and I am very excited about it. We're addressing the concepts within GoldenRuleism, but we're adapting that for children. And I think although children are our motivation to reach children, we're very aware and cognizant of the fact that the language is not for children. And in fact, there's a lot of research coming out fairly recently, and I'm working with a child psychologist back in the UK who's working with Cambridge as well. And they're giving us information about the theory of mind. It's known as the theory of mind. And it's a fairly recent piece of research that's come out around empathy and understanding for children. At what age can kids, like I have a 5-year-old, almost 6, and a 2-year-old, almost 3 here, my 2 daughters. The concepts of empathy is in the previous way of understanding it's a little bit ahead of them. So it used to be thought that at the age of 4 or 5, you could understand perspective, you could understand empathy. But this theory of mind is stating that it actually is about 7 or 8 years old. Now, it depends from person to person, of course, but roughly speaking, around the age of 7 to 8, children are starting to understand the concept of empathy, but not before that. And it's not until you come into the teenage years that you have a concept of perspective taking. So you're able to work with the 2 main principles within GoldenRuleism, and I'll share them now. But so essentially it's an adult book, but we're trying to address that. And we have set up a website, which we'll be very excited to release pretty soon. It's connecting and with sharing resources, sharing tools to be able to take on the concepts of GoldenRuleism for children, with children, and guided towards children. So I can say a little bit about that towards the end as well. So it's a children's book, but it's not written for this particular book. It is not for children. And it's a gift. It's a gift that's given to you. So if people do find it valuable, if people are interested in it, you can get the hard copy or you can get the PDF off our website. And it's a gift. And if you're interested in donating or making it a consideration to donate to a nonprofit somewhere close to you, a charitable organization of your choice, that's completely optional. So it is a gift for free, and that's from the author. And he may even be here today. Hopefully he is a participant at some point and we'll get a chance to interact. If not, I'm sure he'll be watching this as playback. So he spent a lot of time making it as simple and as elegant as he possibly could, so we can all understand the concepts within GoldenRuleism. So it's elegant and it's simple. It's expansive, hopefully very beneficial, I believe very powerful, but even more importantly, it's universal. So it's not for one specific group, for one specific culture or religion. It's for everybody, and it's always as well. So it's something that we can use on a daily basis. And in terms of the intros, the last thing I'll say is that this, I think it's a beautiful dedication at the beginning of the book to Craig's wife, Cherry, and he wanted to deeply appreciate and share a thank you to Sherry as well in the prelude up to it. So what's coming out? What's the main thing from Golden Ruleism on Golden Rule Day? And why are we connecting obviously to Golden Rule Day? The do to others as you would like done for you, and this reciprocation that Felipe talks about quite elegantly a lot of the time in his weekly sharings. It's just taking that on board and adding a few other essential components. So it's really do for all others. So do for all others, both directly, here we go, we've got it in front of us, both directly and indirectly. And it's, you know, purposely saying directly and indirectly. And we'll go through that within the booklet, what that means to you and what it means to the author as well. What you would like, what you would want done for you. So do for all others, both directly and indirectly, what you would want done for you. And then we've also got don't do to any others directly or indirectly what you wouldn't want done for you. Two simple, elegant, and rememberable, hopefully memorable gestures, principles, values, guided, you know, in terms of our morals, our ethics, and our values, trying to have them on mind. And if I'm entering into a conversation, and it started to happen with me, I'm thinking about what could I do in this moment? And I'm using these two principles. But what should I not do in this moment? Because often it's an inaction I recognize as an action, and these are guidelines, I suppose. So if we just leave this session today remembering those two principles, we'll bring them up a few times, we'll be able to share them again. That's what Golden Ruleism is built around. And it explores it in a few different ways, but really that's the opening to Golden Ruleism. Of course, Golden Ruleism rises from the expanded application and the moral and ethical precept most widely embraced by the majority of world religions, and also people that are not practicing religion. They would understand the concept of Golden Rule. And many of us know the Golden Rule. Many of us it's been part of our everyday conversation. I would argue that many of us, although we know it, do we know how to put it into practice? And so Golden Ruleism and the guidebook for Golden Ruleism explores that a little. It gives us lots of questions. It doesn't give all the answers, and it encourages us to explore these questions through conversation in our family, in our friends, and in our community as well. So through the Golden Rule, it's generally rooted in the major world religions. And Craig goes into this within Golden Ruleism quite a lot. And that major world religions try to live by the Golden Rule. It's the number one rule that has universal applicability. And that's an important concept as well, that although it's understood and it's a joining force within the main world religions today, do we all know it and do we all use it on a daily basis? So simply said, when we choose to live our lives in accordance with the intent of Golden Rule, we adopt a set of morals and ethics to guide us. They relate to how we can internalize the right or wrong conduct when we're living our daily life. So, and again, Craig encourages us to explore the definitions of what a moral is, what an ethic is for ourselves. We hear these words quite often. We might hear them within conversations or within education, but what does it mean to me in this moment on the 5th of April, 2023? What's my ethic? What is an ethic to me? Or what's my ethics? And what are my morals as well? And he goes in a conversation here to subjective and objective and how we can work with that. Coming from the Golden Rule. So there's a couple of questions here that I can go through, and we can stop for a bit of a pause to see if there's any questions coming through to Felipe as well.
Yeah, so there's a little comment that has on the chat that says, isn't it just about being kind? Acting kindness. The Golden Rule is based on acting on behalf of self and all others, isn't it?
I'm not sure who made this comment, but I would say from a father's point of view, from somebody who's trying to work in human rights and challenge injustice, being kind is a fantastic start. Being kind and knowing that kindness is both a gift that I can give other people and receive. And going further to say that kindness is also something that children can connect to, being kind and caring. Children of any age can connect to that for sure. Golden Ruleism builds on the basis that we know being kind is a gift to others. We know being kind is a gift to us, both emotionally, physically, and even in terms of our body. If we're being kind, we know we're being kind. If we're being kind to others and to ourselves, it's within our moral compass, within our ethics. So I love this comment, and I agree with you. And for many people, being kind might be the same thing as being compassionate. For others, it might not. And we can get into the weeds of that as well. And maybe that could be a part of our conversation. What's the difference between being kind to ourselves and others and being compassionate to ourselves and others? Within the Charter for Compassion, we may have a differentiation, but other people may not. And so, yeah, thank you for your comments. Felipe, any other comments there that might connect?
No, I do have a little bit of a question, sort of like to dig a little bit into what you just were mentioning. I'm having a hard time, thinking about morals and ethics and how they might be like similar but different concepts, and the transcendence of each. And how can we say that what I consider moral or ethical is what someone in Japan that is a very religious Shinto person might consider moral or ethical?
Yeah, it's a great question as well. And culturally, our code of conduct here in Ireland, for example, I live in Spain, I'm from Ireland. There might be different variations and nuances within how I see my cultural ethics, my moral ethics, or my code of conduct that I try and live by. But I think they're connected. I think they're influenced by each other, but we might have a different definition. And so for me, it's not really important the word that we use, whether it's ethics, morals, and how we use them interchangeably. For me, it's what we do based on them. So I know if I'm being, based on my own internal code of ethics, I think my body and my mind and my soul knows if I'm being unethical, if I'm being immoral, if I'm not aligned with my values. And that somehow can come out and manifest itself. So if I say something to my brothers, to my sisters, we've just been at a family wedding here. If I say something that is insulting in some way, it's not just empathy working here as well. Hopefully it is empathy, but it's bringing in my values. It's bringing in these morals and ethics for me. Now, I can't speak for everybody here. I'd be interested to hear what you think, Felipe, as well, to get the conversation going. But I think it's a general code. Sorry, I missed that last bit. It might be my internet here. Felipe, apologies.
No. It was me. Sorry, I was trying to answer comments on Facebook as well, so you're good.
Great, and please keep the questions coming as well. So we're definitely bringing compassion in. We're bringing our rules or our guidelines to see how we can show empathy and compassion for others and act with a sense of benevolence in mind as well. So there's a couple of questions within the booklet here that we can ask. We don't have to necessarily answer them, but just to get people thinking about this on Golden Rule Day as well. So a simple phrase with questions and answers. So living your life with a passion for compassion, empathy, morality, and ethicality. So living your life with a passion for compassion, empathy, morality, and ethicality. He's bringing all those together. And this phrase can be said to embody the substance of the Golden Rule and the basic premise by which we can try to live a Golden Rule or a Golden Rule guided life. And so why should we live the GoldenRuleism way is a question that we might ask. Why is it for me? The answer in this guideline, in this booklet, is that it's the right thing to do. How do we know it's the right thing to do? Maybe we get feedback. Then maybe we feel a sense if we're doing something or acting outside of our values, outside of our morals, we might feel that as well. So why to do it? Because it's the right thing to do. Who should live this way? And this is where we get into the beings, the all in our two principles. When we talk about do for all others, both directly and indirectly, who should live the way with a Golden Ruleism guided way? All human beings is the answer here. And people might challenge that as well, because when we talk about beings, we're going to get into a little bit about beyond the human beings, because it's for all sentient beings as well, the principles, the two principles that we have here. And when should we live this way? Today, Golden Rule Day today, and every day afterwards as well, with Golden Ruleism in mind. Where should this be? Of course, this should be wherever we might be in the world. And I'd love to know where people are actually coming in and connecting into this Golden Rule and Golden Ruleism conversation today for Global Read. And what enables us to live this way? We internalize and personalize GoldenRuleism. So we embody the words that are in the document called GoldenRuleism. We embody that. We understand it. We have a sense of questioning, and then we see how we can live our life in accordance with that. And so another couple of questions, in relation to this is, what's in it for me? Like, why should I do this? So whether it's I, you, or we, to be the best human beings we can, we're likely to receive a sense of personal happiness and even joy when we're living in accordance with the practice of GoldenRuleism. Just checking the chat here now to see if there's anything else.
I think that as of now we are good. Mm-hmm.
Great. Okay, so what's in it for me is one question, but what's in it for other people as well? So the golden rule for most people, the golden rule that we've adopted prior to this point is typically understood that we apply it to other people, do for all others. Similar to GoldenRuleism, it's other people as well, but we've added in all, and then we've added in the directly and indirectly. So GoldenRuleism is really encompassing the basic premise of Golden Rule and then expanding that basic premise and applying it to all other beings. So all sentient beings, human and non-human. I think that's an important component of what distinguishes GoldenRuleism and Golden Rule. Not that within Golden Rule, going back to Confucius, was talking about excluding people, but it's mainly in terms of its wording, looking at all other people. Yeah. And so every being, everyone is individually placed under this universally wide umbrella of empathy and compassion. That's all encompassed within GoldenRuleism. Absolutely. Within religions, and in addition to people who are not necessarily practicing religion or different spirituality, it covers everybody.
Totally. And so there's another comment / question on the chat. So for the charter, we move from feeling for another person, which is being empathic, to acting to help the other, which is compassion, right? That's the definition of the charter for compassion. See while someone is in pain, feel as that person is pain, do something to end that pain. So the act itself is kindness. Isn't being ethical being responsible?
Isn't being ethical being responsible? Again, I can answer this, and I think we've had great discussions already, Felipe, in the past about our definitions of even what compassion is, because it's not the same for everybody. Sometimes it's action, sometimes it's to reduce the suffering of others, in addition to discernment. So knowing what to do and how to do that best. Isn't being ethical being responsible? I like to break down the word personally, response-able. So having the ability, responsibility is having the ability to be able to respond to whatever situation I might be in. And that's a gift that I can give myself. It's a confidence that I could potentially work towards. Having an ethical and being ethical and acting ethically, for me, that's a guidance. So it's my morals, my values, my ethics are my guidance. My ability to act on them is being responsible and having that sense of responsibility to other beings, but also to the world around me. And that's what I attempt with progress, not perfection, as my goal, as my guide as well. What about you, Felipe? The difference between being ethical and being responsible, because it might be culturally different where we're all coming from.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I have a major hard time answering anything when it comes to ethics or morals, because I feel like it's such a subjective matter where my ethical principles might be very different from others. I was raised in South America. I immigrated to North America. I have been part of 2 different religions. I was Catholic, and then I was Mormon, and then now I consider myself spiritual and non-religious. I lived a life when I was a kid, trying to stay safe and quiet, but I've always been gay or queer, whatever you want to call it. And so I have changed a lot of my morals and my perspective on life because of the things that I've experienced now. And so I think that all these things, to me, it's a very shaky territory to even think about ethics, because my ethics might be different from everybody else's. But there's someone said in the comments here, and it's a good way to bring up another point of the Golden Rule and GoldenRuleism in general. It says, isn't there a call to see the other being as part of a person's extended self? Each one part of the whole. this is sort of like an idea with like Buddhism, right? Like Brahma and
Just gonna
Atman,
say
you know,
that.
like
Yeah.
all connecting back to the source, and we're all the source, you know, in which, if we really think about it, that would be the most prime condition for society to be able to see ourselves in somebody else's eyes and know that we are one, although represented in, or showing or manifested in two different bodies per se. But, you know, who is to say, and how can we confirm that that is the case? You know, so
Yep.
would you like to extend a little bit on that? Because I feel
Yeah.
like, sorry, let me just finish this thought, because I feel like in many ways the golden rule is such an inspiring principle and all-encompassing in so many ways. But if there's something that sometimes I have a hard time with, is that there is othering on the golden rule. It's like, treat others as I want to be treated. We are separating our ego from the united idea that we have of being one. So how would you like to explain this or answer to this comment?
Yeah, but there's so many ways. And first of all, thank you, Felipe, for sharing your own personal understanding, and your the way you understand it resonates for me as well. But the comment in the chat here as well, and it does, when I think about Buddhism and what Buddhism for me espouses, knowing that tomorrow, actually, the first full moon of this month, is the Buddha's birthday, very close to GoldenRuleism, or Golden Rule Day as well. I'm trying to think of how I can communicate this to my children as well, that the other, that we are part of the other. We are ourselves, we are the other as well, beyond human beings, because I'm actually based in a very rural part of Ireland right now. And so compared to where we're living in the city, usually there's much more of an ease around this conversation, seeing land, seeing animals, being part of and recognized by what's happening in our environment. I do find there's lots of texts, there's lots of information out there about how to do this. But if I was a child or a teenager and I was coming into this understanding of being able to detach my perspective, how I understand things, from another person's perspective, or knowing that the way I think about things, the way I feel about things is different to the way other people think about things. There's a lot of new neuroscience research saying that we have to be mindful about how we're sharing this, because it's previous ways that we're talking about it, and particularly with rules, rights and wrongs. I think we have to be a little bit mindful of the neuroscience, the theory of mind that I mentioned before, but also that it's about a lived experience. So knowing that my actions or inactions can affect other people in a very basic interdependent way, but feeling that. And I think that's, if I could sort of make that segue into the use of the words directly and indirectly within GoldenRuleism, because I think we're, in my opinion at least, we're trying to touch on that and to allude into that. And so there's many examples that you might give, but if you're to explore, just to read it out a little bit here, if you're to explore or to invite you to explore this and have more conversations as well with family and friends, and the many examples where GoldenRuleism, the applicability of GoldenRuleism, you can come up with your own answer to this. And there's no right or wrong way of doing it, but they're guidelines for having these conversations. So considering, particularly in the world that we live in today, the plight of somebody, and particularly young people, who are living with hunger, without shelter, or sometimes both, without being hungry and being without shelter, we can directly give somebody food. If you see somebody that's hungry and you have food, or you have the ability to offer shelter or water, you can directly have a chance to show your compassion for that individual or people, and do something directly. But we can also do something indirectly. We can choose to act in a non-direct, or act indirectly instead of directly, by challenging some of the root causes of homelessness in our community, or by working with an organization that's lobbying for food security in whatever part of the world it might be. There's ways we can do that, and there's many examples, and I'd love to hear or see some in the chat here as well, how we can bring that direct and indirect addition within GoldenRuleism into play. And so I've mentioned it a few times as well, but if I'm taking this principle and deciding not to act because my actions here in an interdependent world will affect people in other parts of the world. So an example is I have a very close friend in Uganda who's working with environmental sustainable projects in his community. But by me deciding not to do something in this part of the world, it is connecting with compassion for somebody living in another part of the world that's really struggling with climate change, for example, much more than I see on a daily basis. But by me deciding, not to use less flights to get from A to B, or walk more, or not buy a mobile phone with, coltan in it, that's being mined in a very unethical way in a part of the world that's deeply affected by that. My inactions can create a ripple effect of compassion, driven by compassion as well, in other parts of the world. So I think the use of direct and indirect within Golden Ruleism is a very interesting one to explore and to get into a conversation with. And it's also related for me and to Craig as well, because he's put it in on a number of occasions, the author for Golden Ruleism, to justice and to injustice. And so if we're using this as a guide towards local, national, international, and global justice, and challenging injustices, it gives us a good compass. And I think for me, that's what the Golden Rule does, but also Golden Ruleism. It gives me something to go on, to have conversations with myself, conversations with other people in my community, and think about the other beings and how I'm affecting them in everything that I might do. And again, by use of mimicry and knowing that children at a certain age, until they get to that 7, 8 years old, or teenagers, where they're able to develop true sense of perspective, that they model what we're doing. So we're acting as role models, but we're mimicking what young people will act out as well. So the language we use is also very important.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a little comment here that says, when we're talking about directly or indirectly, recognize that we can be acting compassionately while also acting indirectly incompassionately. So that dichotomy that comes with like the cell phone or whatever. But I think it's a really it's a good clarifying thing to have directly and indirectly. So I've been doing the 23 Days of Compassion Challenge with the Charter for Compassion, and one of the days was focused on Golden Ruleism and thinking about the formulation. Let me just say it again so people remember. Do for all others, both directly and indirectly, what you would want done for you, or don't do to any others, either directly or indirectly, what you wouldn't want done unto you or to you. And so I had a hard time at the beginning thinking like, what does it mean directly, indirectly? And I feel like in many ways, I mean, we're talking about this dichotomy, but also it means action, just like compassion, it's like do something either directly or indirectly. So just do something, just do something. So I think it's very crucial on this idea of using Golden Rule and Golden Ruleism and compassion as principles of action, not just like the feeling or think of kindness, but actually do something about it. So that's pretty powerful. And so there was another comment here that said, and I love this because while we're talking about this like other, this person says, besides applying the Golden Rule to humans and all sentient beings, I would include non-sentient as well, as a case could be made that the Earth is not sentient and is therefore excluded by this. A version I tend to use is, do unto all others and the Earth as you would want done for you. I like the addition of both directly and indirectly, and we'll start including it. Cool. So, this is Steve. Hi, Steve. It's funny enough, the formulation that we've been using with the Golden Rule Day celebration that we've done virtually with the charter for, I don't even know, 4 or 5 years now, we have adapted our formulation to say, treat others and the planet as you would like to be treated, or as you would want to be treated. And so is there something that is mentioned about sentience and non-sentient in the booklet, Shane? And would you like to share more about that?
Yeah, and thank you, Steve, and others who made these comments as well, because the booklet was written some years ago, and a lot has happened to our perspective and our globe, our climate since then. So it's a big debate. It's a daily conversation between the author and others, and the author himself. And so there is a new edition of Golden Ruleism it's ready to go. And this is a big piece that has been questioned as well. Do we bring, certainly Mother Earth is brought into it in the booklet itself. But how do we go beyond sentient beings and recognizing that, yes, there may not be a definition of what sentient is, or what a species is, or speciesism is looked at within Golden Ruleism, but that's in addition to all many other isms that can create harm in the world. But definitely it is a question that's being brought into play, and how do we address it? if it's universally understood that others includes all other sentient beings and non-sentient parts of our environment as well, that deserve to be treated with a sense of respect and dignity and justice. And so to abuse them and go the opposite way to the golden rule at this reciprocation idea and golden ruleism is to go live a life not in accordance to golden ruleism and the golden rules. So it's a great point, and I think it's hard in terms of terminology, because I think when we say non-sentient beings, some people might include Mother Earth in that as well. But what do other people think, I wonder? Because it's how do we get the precise wording that we're all happy with as well,
Right.
while dealing with these topics.
Yeah, and other people might have considered Mother Earth part of a sentient being as well. So, like, you know what I mean? Like, again, the definition of terms, the power of words, it's insane. So there's another comment here made. It says one of your fellow Irishmen, Cormac Russell, talks about our connected community. He talks about our being alert to caring about the people a few doors from our front door. Our good actions to those closest to us multiplies as they do the same, and we start as a noble effect on caring and action.
Beautiful. Yeah, I must look that up as well. And I wasn't aware of my fellow Irish person and what they're saying, but it makes a lot of sense, and even more so today. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so if we delve a little bit deeper into the booklet, and I'm sure that, like, if you have joined our global read, you have access to that link there. If not, I'll post it again in our comments. So the beginning part, as you were saying, it talks about all this like commonalities and questions and concepts of it. But as we progress on the booklet, there are more specific things that it starts to being discussed, like how will golden ruleism bind us, or how will golden ruleism help, which is kind of nice because it's giving the reader a vision of what this would look like if we were all to think about golden ruleism. So can you expand a little bit more on this?
Yeah, and thanks for questioning that as well, because even within the isms, again, we're moving, we're changing in time, so it's organic, and I think it says very clearly when there's a list of the isms that we're working towards challenging, and then the types of things and ways we can do that. It gives us a list, but it's not an infinite list, and it does evolve, and it is evolving. So we're trying to include new things and maybe challenge some of the things that we were well, I can say the author has humility enough to say maybe this didn't work within the isms, but I think it's fair to say that challenging ageism, challenging racism, challenging sexism, colonialism, and many of the other isms that are here. There's some that will say this, generally speaking, in any ethic, in any moral, justice and injustice, and we're going to be siding on the side of justice here. How do we do that? We talked with the question here. So how will golden ruleism bind us together? There's a huge list. I'm no doubt that this can all be added to, but this cooperation, collaboration, cooperation, compassion, commitment, courage, determination, of course, friendship and gratitude, assisting and helping others, honesty, hope, humility, strength, tolerance, and even tolerance is an interesting one, because people will say, well, tolerance is not enough anymore. Just to tolerate other human beings and other beings, sentient or non-sentient, is not enough. We need to move beyond tolerance to acceptance. And so these words, they change in time as well. So there's a huge list of ways that we can use golden ruleism to focus on our common humanity rather than the things that divide us. And at the same time, we want to use this golden ruleism guided ethic within golden ruleism to see what we stand for, and these are the binding things that we stand for, but also what we stand against at times as well. So how we can do that in a sense of solidarity. We're not accepting the abuse of our planet anymore. We're not accepting the abuse of people on this planet and other beings, as we've alluded to before. And how do we do that? By using whatever we have within our capacity and asking the questions on a more global scale. How can we join together using golden rule and golden ruleism as a way of doing that? And there's lots more guidance, lots more questions within that to see how the golden ruleism can help in that respect. How are we going to get there from here is a question as well. So recognizing that our world has an immense amount of hurt and grief and suffering, and also a huge amount of optimism and hope and compassion and gratitude. But yeah, it gives us, there's some guidelines here for a societal justice movement. So building on from our actions as individuals, our first action is simple. We make a personal commitment to live a GoldenRuleism guided life. And this is one of the questions that our author talks about quite a lot in the booklet, is a pledge that we give ourselves. You know, for young people, this pledge might be very different to the adult population, or to those in positions of influence for young people. But it might just be waking up in the morning and saying, you know, I pledge as best as I can to have this day as a GoldenRuleism day. Or kindness might come into it, being caring, if we're talking about young people as well. So it can be adapted. It's flexible enough. It's not one size fits all and this is it. The second edition should be released anytime soon as well. We'll hopefully have that on our website and be able to share and distribute copies of GoldenRuleism.
Absolutely.
There's a few more things as well. So Felipe, there might be more.
You know, one of the things that I've noticed also in the booklet is that there is this idea of GoldenRuleism being like an individual's thing, you know, like your personal pledge, but then it expands, you know, it says your family pledge, and then it talks about like, what is it that it says? Like your community's ethics,
yeah.
You know, and so how does that process work? How do we evolve from being like a personal pledge to then a community thing?
Yeah, I think it's an incremental thing as well. So, you know, similar with compassion for self. We look at self-compassion, self-awareness, our own, maybe our ethics, and the way we're able to bring our values into our conversations, into our thoughts and our actions. And then we look at compassion for others and compassion in the systems and communities we belong to. In a similar way, I think we're looking at GoldenRuleism and how it can affect ourselves, how we can benefit and how it can benefit others, but then how it can, you know, within our family, how we can use it, and in our more wider community and society, how can we use GoldenRuleism as a guide to get there? It doesn't give us all the answers, but it certainly starts the conversations and gives us a sense of not being alone when we're trying to act more ethically and compassionately to others around us.
Yeah.
And I think
I love on the, sorry, what were you going to say?
No, there's just a line sort of that's jumping out here. Is the global ethic will grow organically in the countries of the world in a similar fashion to the creation of a community ethic by people in their communities. Our global ethic will ultimately become the sum of its parts. So it's the incremental way we can do that. And he talks about Maslow's hierarchical needs as well, and how we can build on those needs, similar with building on compassion.
Yes.
And ethics and morals, and having this guide with us. Sorry, Felipe, back to you.
Yeah, and so I mean, you know, like more like at the end of the book, there's a whole part that says small actions matter, and I think there's sort of like there's a overarching theme throughout this booklet that does kind of like give me this idea of, you know, like personal pledge to community pledge, small actions to bigger actions. Like, and so how is it that this like sort of like a domino effect or butterfly effect, you know, it changes everything from very small acts from a personal pledge, from a commitment. So can you talk a little about the small actions matter section?
Yeah, there's a line again that's jumping in, is to create your own personalized version. So it's not going to, my version of GoldenRuleism might be a different way. My interpretation of all and others might be unique to me, but it's certainly guiding me in the right direction. And this is the universal, he's going at the universal share care. For me, as somebody who's been heavily inspired by global southern, if I'm looking at the perspective of the globe, my experience of living and working in the global south has definitely influenced the way I see compassion, empathy, and many of the themes related to this. And so Ubuntu always jumps to mind when I think of I am because we are, and it connects to one of the comments earlier by one of our participants about the other and beyond sentient beings. You know, this is present for me in GoldenRuleism. Ubuntu, or Umoja in East Africa as well, and the way other indigenous communities look at it. I think what connects for me on a personal level with this text is that it is embedded within indigenous philosophy and communities around the world. And we do get it as an innate understanding of the way we like to look at the world. But we don't necessarily have the text in the Western world that I'm part of as well to give us that extra guidance. And so the GoldenRuleism is starting with that. And the fact that it's organic, and the fact that we're now adapting that for younger children by creating what we hope to create is, and I think it's going to happen in the next year or so, hopefully before then, is a box, a gem box. So the gem standing for GoldenRuleism education material. So how we can create this GoldenRuleism, these concepts in a child and a youth-friendly way, and create that material to have us, with those tools and in our toolbox, with truth, with value, with justice at a core component, but in accordance with neuroscience, in accordance with indigenous philosophies, and very much tailor-making that for the small items, the small acts of kindness around the world. One of the things that Craig is really passionate about is getting those small stories like the starfish, the famous story of the starfish on the beach after the storm. And you pick up one starfish when there's millions on the beach that are stranded. You put or I might do it, or a child might do it, put the starfish back into the water. And somebody questions, what difference are you making? There's millions of starfish that are stranded here after the storm. Well, you're making a difference to that one starfish. That one starfish feels that, and that ripple effect can be felt throughout the world. And children get that. Children understand that as well. So I think it's a very important point you make, though. It's not having to be overwhelmed by the injustice that exists out there. On a day like today, and Golden Rule Day, we're looking at the things that are going right, as well as the strength and the resilience that's out there, the things that are going well, and how we can work in solidarity, in collaboration, and in cooperation with each other to live a more ethically mindful, compassionate, and kind world.
Absolutely. Well, so, and this comment that, or question that has been asked right here in the chat is very relatable to what you were just saying. They're asking, how can we teach GoldenRuleism to children? So this book is a children's book, not for children, because it's basically telling adults, to teach this. So how can we teach GoldenRuleism to children? Are there any tools or resources available for people to access, either online or something, so that we can direct them somewhere, so that we can start teaching this concept to our children?
Absolutely, and thank you for that question, because it's a really important one, and it's where our motivation stands right now. Of course, it's important for educators, parents, and caregivers to have these concepts and live them out, and so children see that. But there's also a lot of resources out there, and in fact, today it's in Irish time. It's at midnight. There's going to be a great session within Golden Rule where we're looking at the Children's Charter, and we're talking about adapted models and resources that can be used to answer that very question. And it's not only the Children's Charter. There's lots and lots of fantastic resources that are out there. The Charter for Compassion, within the education side of the Charter of Compassion, the education sector, we are working with what we would feel as the most up-to-date, what I would say is really professional, thought out, researched training and resources for teachers, for parents, and for young people themselves. So we're working with organizations, like Think Equal and See Learning and Bounce Forward, lots of organizations that are working in the global south, north, east, west, and they're going into schools, providing resources. Sometimes it's a book that has components of GoldenRuleism, Golden Rule within it. Sometimes it might be a training or a video. Within our website, which again, we'll keep on hopefully sharing with people, we want to bring these together. We want to show people, if this doesn't fit, something else will fit, because there's many ways to communicate what we're trying to communicate here to adults on behalf of the children. And if you go onto the education section within the Charter of Compassion, you'll also find ways you can do that. Felipe, you mentioned the EdNet Forum. So once a month, we're bringing in different organizations working in different parts of the world. In the last couple of months alone, we've had people from the UK, from India, from the United States, and from we will also have people from Africa as well sharing what they're doing to answer that question, because we're not alone. The Charter is a network of networks, a huge network, an expanding network. But if we're trying to do this as one organization, I think we'll be as strong as the wind sometimes in this part of the world, going against it.
Yep, great. So another comment says, your perspective seems to also call us to look within our religious, spiritual traditions for the universal heritage of compassion, essentially within each of these. Anything that you would like to add to that?
My perspective is quite similar to yours that you shared earlier on, Felipe. I've been brought up in a religious context, in a Catholic community, family, and I've managed to be able to gain perspective from other parts of the world, from other places that I've lived and worked. And my political, religious, social perspective is organic. It's changing quite a lot. But I do think from my perspective, at least in my journey so far, within most of the religions that I've had a chance to study and experience and see firsthand, golden ruleism, the concepts of kindness, caring, compassion, they're at the core. When they're not being used, when they're being abused and misused, that's when they're absent. But the religions, the main religions that I've been part of, and other spiritual groups as well that maybe wouldn't consider themselves to be religions, these are the joining forces. These are the glue that brings them together and goes beyond religious boundaries to share common humanity with people from other perspectives and other religions. And so yeah, it's beautiful when you start finding that out, that this one little core, this gem at the middle is compassion.
Yeah, and it really is like the connector to any sort of like interfaith or interfaith dialogue, to bring back that element of commonality. Like, hey, I might be halfway across the world, believe something completely different, even have an image of God completely different to what you have. But this principle is in my sacred text, and this principle is in your sacred text. Let's start there, right? And so I think it is important to recognize that. And as well, there was a comment that was saying, I love the idea of incorporating Ubuntu into the concept of GoldenRuleism because they're siblings. And then later somebody else confirms, that somebody else agrees with that. I am because you are, and we are because, so it's lovely to see those connections and see them in different cultures and traditions, not only like religious or spiritual, but even just like in like ancient indigenous traditions.
And storytelling. I mean, we've created an education system in many parts of the world, the ones that I grew up in, that is based on, an education system that's really touching into one or two, maybe three or four forms of our intelligence, and linguistic intelligence, for example, mathematical intelligence, but storytelling and the ways cultures used to pass on their ethics and morals and guidance, from being able to create stories at a young age and regurgitate the nuggets of wisdom within stories. I think we have to look beyond the current education systems that exist in our schools and feel confident enough to say, what else is out there? Maybe it's not within the 4 or 5, 6 hours of an education system, but it's outside of that we can complement and reinforce some of these concepts that we're talking about within GoldenRuleism.
Absolutely. Shane, I thank you so much for guiding this conversation on GoldenRuleism and the booklet that can be found free to download online on our website. We are coming to an end. We have about 3 to 5 more minutes. Is there anything else that you would like to leave our viewers with before we close this session?
I'll finish as I started, not with my words, but a final thought from the author, if that's okay. So there's a final thought that says, as we begin each day, let's place this question at the center of our voluntary actions and inactions, and which applies in the most normal life situations. So the question is, what would a GoldenRuleism guided person do in any of these situations? And so he just wishes everybody the best of luck with this, and to all of your communities as well. So on this day in particularly, we hope that the question above and the words in this booklet are of personal value to you during your time on this earth. And we do make reference to Mother Earth here. So the very best wishes to you to yours and to ours, including our precious one-of-a-kind, one and only Mother Earth, and her sentient, all of her sentient beings, and everybody else that makes her an incredible wonder that she is. So, Gorev Mila Mila Maigut, as we'd say in Irish. Thank you very much for everyone.
Thank you so much, Shane. And let me just share with you our next upcoming things going on with Golden Rule Day at 11 a.m. Pacific. So in an hour from now, basically, we have Golden Rule and Compassion for All Animals. This is the Interfaith Vegan Coalition that will be directing a conversation about veganism and the Golden Rule. Next, we have, not that, there we go. We have at 1 p.m. Pacific, and you can see the other times here, the new one-on-one Golden Rule conversation. This is with Donna Murphy and Cheryl Grave from Braver Angels and from the National Institute for Civil Discourse. We also have, this is something that we're talking about, children and everything. This will be a great panel. Children's Charter Kids Grown Up Then and Now. This will be happening at 4 p.m. Pacific. We recorded, this group recorded the kids 11, 10 years ago, and now they're more grown up, and we want to see how their perspective has been since they've had the Golden Rule principles so ingrained in their head from such a young age. Talking about sentience and non-sentience, we also have the Environment, the Golden Rule with Kate Trinka. We're going to be talking about Heal the Waters and the importance of taking care of our water sources and how is that related to Golden Rule. Very much on that conversation with sentient and non-sentient. And final, we have at 6 p.m. our Prayer for Compassion movie screening, later followed by a Q&A by the creators of this movie. So this will be the end of our activities with Golden Rule Day. You can join Golden Rule Day celebrations by going to charterforcompassion.org, clicking on programs, Golden Rule Day. You can register for any and all the panels that we have left for this day. Once again, thanks Shane and thanks everybody else for joining us during this global read, and we'll see you in about an hour with the vegan panel. Bye.
Felipe, a special thanks to you for getting up so early in the morning and having this passion for compassion. I think it was 3 a.m. you're up, and that's all the way day through. So thank you very much.
Coffee.
Do we have any music? Felipe, do we have any music to finish us off?
Oh, yes. Let me just play that right now. Thanks for reminding me of that.
Thanks again to everybody.
Let me see if I can play. Let me see if I can.
Progress, not perfection, Felipe.
Let me share my screen, and then it will be sharing the audio way better now.
Be kind to humans, be kind to nature. It's human culture, it's human nature. It keeps us real, 'cause we're all creatures. We're all learners, we're all teachers. We care for our world and one another. It's in our hands now, it's in our future. If I'm nice to you, then I'm nice to me. It comes around and it sets us free. It sets us free. We're all beings and we're all nature. It's time to give back to Mother Nature. Be kind to nature and other beings. It's what we and our world need. Be kind to humans, be kind to nature. It's human culture, it's human nature. It makes us strong as can be. Moving together, makes us one family. Kindness forever. It sets us free, it sets us free, it sets us free. sets us free.